Welcome to the Aegance Offscript Podcast, where we talk to industry leaders who share their stories, insights, and lessons, unfiltered and unscripted. I'm your host, Lawrence, and today I'm excited to welcome Bernice Houy, the co-founder and CEO of Fintura Ltd, and Reece Bailey, the co-founder and CRO of Fintura. Fintura is an AI-powered platform that's reshaping how accounting firms in South Africa manage compliance, tax, and practice operations. They've already onboarded firms representing over 1,000 client organizations, picking up a major recognition at the Startup World Cup in 2025. Bernice, Reece, really great to have you here. Thanks so much for being on.
Thanks so much, Lawrence.
Yeah, thanks, Lawrence. Looking forward to it.
I'll obviously hand the microphone over to you. I've positioned Fintura to a certain degree, but if you could maybe provide a little bit more context around what it is that you're doing in your areas of operations.
Yeah, definitely. So Fintura is very focused on helping accountants with their own accounting practices, as well as CFOs with their groups of companies. And our focus right now is South Africa. And we've picked South Africa as that this is my home. This is where I've studied, where I've come up in the world of accounting, and it's what I know. And we're plugging the holes in the industry. As years go on, compliance requirements increase every single year, and it becomes even more difficult for accountants to manage. You've got a lot of singular softwares that are coming out into the market, trying to plug these holes, but are actually making it a bit more difficult for accountants to manage all of these different softwares. And that is where Fintura changes the game, because we're coming in to service all of those needs plus more, essentially from one login, and have everything speak to one another.
Amazing. So Bernice, when you first set out to build Fintura, what was the broader vision that drove you?
The broader vision, so when I was practicing as an accountant, I ran a firm for over 7 years, and I have very little patience, should I say, for things that seem admin intensive and seem unnecessary. And I found a lot of the processes that were happening in trying to manage a firm very much that way, very manual, very admin intensive. Sometimes, hours of staff's time going to just managing these kind of processes and, checking CIPC, checking SARS, checking tax compliance, all these things. And it just seemed wasteful. And essentially, that was where the idea for Fintura started. And then with Fintura, it just started to build. So it started with eliminating those processes, but then it went to the bigger picture, where it started looking at, let's take payroll, for example. Why don't payroll softwares speak to all of these other aspects of businesses? Why do I need like 6 to 7 different softwares and then have to, for example, onboard all of my clients onto every single one of these softwares? So whether it's that we build it ourselves or we continue with our integrations into other softwares, it's about bringing it all under one roof. Every single key finance function that requires a manual intensive process, that should all be managed under one roof, and everything should just, how do I say this, workflow together. So that's the broader vision for Fintura.
Have you found that vision has had to evolve as traction grew?
100%. The stages that this business has gone through is actually, it's unreal. When I first came up with the idea, I think I had maybe like 4 finance functions in mind. And then we went through an accelerator process with the Founder Institute. And through that, it grew into 9 finance functions. And now we're at the stage where we've got advisors on board, we've got investors on board, and they're really helping us focus on specific key targets, basically. So we've got a keen focus on 3 of these functions at the moment. So you can see how it's going up and down constantly. And even now for the 4th module that's coming out, we're actually opening that up to the users. And we're going to say, right, cherry pick the one that's most relevant to you, that you want to see in the platform, and then that's going to be the one that gets added.
Yeah, super interesting. And Reece, from a revenue perspective, what did you see in the market that made Fintura viable?
I think if we go back to before we launched anything, before we broke ground on any code, in my opinion, we did everything by the book. We built a pre-launch of over 130 accounting firms, so we already shown strong demand in the market. That alone was enough reason for us to be like, okay, this is something we need to really crank on and push. But also now the actual feedback loop we have with these users. We've got champions of the product, and we only launched 4 months ago. Like real champions, I'm on phone calls daily with our users, and screaming and shouting about Fintura to like their peers. We've had people introduced to Fintura around a braai. Like, it's insane, like when you think about it. So tying it to the question, to me that's the validation. It's we've always been user first, and our actual ICP and customers, which are accountants and finance professionals, and they need that unification. That's what it is. They're completely fed up of using multiple softwares to pretty much do the same thing. Sometimes there'll be multiple softwares that offer the same solution, but there's nothing that actually brings them all together. So yeah, that is the main validating metric. It's just the user feedback. It's been phenomenal.
And how do you keep the vision that Bernice has outlined aligned with commercial realities?
That is a great question, because I definitely want to go off on a tangent sometimes from a marketing perspective. I think the key is all of the marketing communication is fully vetted by Bernice, should I say. Otherwise I would go gung-ho and I'd be trying to get new leads left, right and center. But everything is it's understood, it's validated in-house. The messaging is exactly around what accountants need and their problems. And yeah, I think that's the best way for us to actually validate that messaging. I'm not an accounting expert. I'm very open and honest about that with all of our users. We always have a laugh around it. But Bernice she's got over 10 years experience in the space. She's got a deep understanding, and it's from a messaging standpoint, I just leverage that, and it seems to be working.
And Bernice, so you mentioned that you decided to integrate tax, compliance, and practice management into one platform.
Yes.
Why integrate rather than focus?
So when I say integrate, I mean like integrate with SaaS, integrate with CIPC. But if I'm understanding your question correctly, we have essentially built these modules, taxation still to be released. With the SaaS integration, practice management is there, it's live, integrated with CIPC, and I mean those integrations for us are key in the aspect of keeping information and data live in real time, and also taking that away from, I think we had it described recently where someone said, I don't have the need to log into CIPC again. Like everything is here. I can see everything and I can keep track of everything, which is music to our ears, because that's exactly what we want. And then the same will be done from a SaaS aspect for the taxation module. We want everything to be there live, real time for them, actionable as well. A main thing for us is not just to provide overviews, but is also to provide execution. And that is where our build comes in. And then, further integrations in order to streamline these processes. We have a Xero very close to a complete integration. And I mean, we're working on Sage, working on Simple Pay. So these are all the things that we're looking at to ease the user experience.
And Reece, with new modules rolling out, how are you prioritizing what to build next from a go-to-market lens?
With prioritization, right? Interesting one. So, honest opinion, I need to be kind of brought back down to kind of ground level sometimes, because I have so many. I'm always in the market looking at different softwares, right? And we don't just look at softwares, native to South Africa. We're utilizing and leveraging softwares globally, from an AI solution, softwares, anything from an automation standpoint. So I have tons of ideas where I'm like, we can build this in, we can build that in, we can build that in. And I have to get grounded very quickly because, it's that prioritization and focus. So yeah, I'd say with new modules kind of rolling out, it's always aligning with what the actual needs of the users are. So again, I go back to feedback because it's so important, but we have a very strong feedback loop with our users. We don't just build for the sake of building. Every single use case in Fintura is typically come from a feature request. If I'm honest, I'd say 90% of them, barring our initial core build, which we launched as an MVP, has literally just been building blocks built by actual users and user feedback. So yeah, that's the one thing that kind of grounds me and brings me back to, okay, let's not go too wide. Let's keep focused and let's stay on track with exactly what is going to move the needle for accountants.
Yeah, so it sounds like client demand is paramount in terms of making decisions on which direction to go next.
100%. 100%.
And Bernice, if we look internally at Fintura, are there any internal systems that have been most critical for keeping compliance updates flowing smoothly?
100%. So we are a very AI first company. And I mean, as Reece said, he is always on the lookout for the next best software. So he finds like very, very key softwares that are actually implemented within our business. So, whilst we are running around like headless chicken, keeping all the pieces together for the business, we basically call it like our team of agents. So we have, AI agents running in development, running in marketing, running in sales, and they're all doing their thing to, scrape for updates and then pull those updates into blogs and notify us of any updates, even from a EIPC perspective. I think it's actually something that Reece just put into play yesterday. So when we get updates or something changes on our clients, then it pings through straight to us. And that is a constant process that happens every single day. And then, we come in and we action. But it's definitely front of mind to keep up to date with everything that's happening, because not only does it affect our user base, but it also affects, Fintura as a software, because we cannot be out of date. I think, with the recent changes that came through with the beneficial ownership, we had CIPC did a webinar about it on the Friday. We were notified of it, and all the changes were implemented over that weekend. And that's what we love to do at Fintura, is just to constantly be on top of the industry and what's happening.
And any other moments where regulation forced a quick pivot that you could mention?
Oh, well, I mean, we can talk about Puppy. And I can talk about the new trust tax deadlines that came into play. Well, with the new Puppy requirements that have come in this year, I think it threw everyone for a loop. And a lot of our users had cases where they had done the standard submission, on the Puppy site, but then received emails a bit later. I think it even happened to Fintura itself, where we did our Puppy submission and then we got an email afterwards saying that the submission was wrong. So it's like when government is chasing their tail, we're chasing our tail. So it's something that it rolls around next year, but that is something that, again, is going to be built in, ready to go for next year's submission. I say that would definitely be another example that you're looking for.
Reece, Bernice alluded to your team of agents who are doing all of this work in the background and automating things for you. In terms of from a sales process standpoint, what workflows have you built that help scale client acquisition?
How long have we got? Okay, so one of the recent workflows we built was like an AI automated workflow that essentially had a list of leads, and it scraped their LinkedIn, scraped their email, created subject lines, first line openers, the full works for a full email campaign, and then pulled it straight through into our instantly sequence. That's just one example, and I mean the open rate and the conversion rate from that has just been phenomenal, and it just shows like if you leverage enough AI but keep that human touch. So a lot of the workflows that we build internally, it has full-on knowledge bases to pull from as it's building the workflow. So you're not rigid in that you're just building a straight line workflow that is just going to be kind of carbon copied and sound the same. Like each individual particular messaging is based on a Fintura brand and voice document, or like, previous posts from Bernice, like that it'll scrape through. Like is that you can actually humanize the AI now, which is insane that we're even talking about that in 2025. But I think for us it's pretty much the 80-20 rule. So, we always have 80% direct automation, AI automation with anything, not just sales, operationally, but then there's always that 20%. And we say the same thing to our user base and our accountants, automate 80%, but you're there for the 20%. You've got the technical know-how. You can come in and actually offer that high level, advisory work. And internally we have Quinn, who's our tax and compliance specialist. Like he's there, that 20% to oversee those submissions and ensure that everything is where it should be, because ultimately, AI and automation will get you nearly there, but you always, in my opinion, you always need that level of oversight. So we implement that through all of our workflows.
Which part of your funnel would you say is most reliable? And conversely, where are the bottlenecks still showing up?
Most reliable. So in my opinion, it's always top of funnel. Like you get tons of opens, tons of impressions, tons of whatever it may be. I think it's operationalizing as you go through the funnel. And making sure that you've got the right processes, and a lot of that can still fall into manual processes to make sure that you do convert. But yeah, making sure that the right touch points, the right notifications are there, so that you need to follow up with this, follow up with that. Whether it be additional documentation or pushing them to a webinar or whatever it may be from a sales perspective. I do think top of funnel has become a lot easier to actually get people into the funnel, and then it's about systemizing the rest.
Yeah. And Reece, what percentage would you say you rely upon referrals versus your outbound workflows?
Right now, I would say it's probably a 80-20 split with direct outbound and 20% referrals, simply because we've just been in, scale mode. We've been, let's get Fintura out there. We are in the process of building out our partnership program right now. So we're going to be putting a key focus on, partnerships, whether that be internal user base, referring different accounting firms or groups of companies, or externally. We've had so many interesting conversations that we've kind of got to keep under wraps right now until they're confirmed. But, some of the biggest possible partnerships you can think of in our space that we're really, really progressing with. So yeah, it's definitely, the next 6 months are going to be very exciting for Fintura, I think.
That's great to hear. And Bernice, so building a fintech team that understands accountants is never easy. How do you approach hiring?
Well, my approach so far has been that I've brought on people who, number one, they worked for me at my previous firm. So they have a very, very deep understanding of the accounting space. And then it's about basically like training them and getting them to understand what it is that we're doing within this business, how a software business operates. It's like changing that mindset where you're going from a service-based business now to essentially a product-based business, or software, should I say, software as a service. But once that clicks, and obviously making sure that our internal processes are streamlined enough for them to be able to do certain things are key. And when it comes to hiring, this is a very different business. It is software as a service. It's not accounting. So the types of people that we hire might not have any fintech experience. Hopefully not. or might not have like direct experience within the accounting space. That's understandable. But it will be about getting them to that point, and also, are they hungry to actually learn? Are they hungry to come in and maybe do like an accounting for dummies or something like that? Do they actually take that initiative? Like we joke with Reece all the time that he's going to do an accounting for dummies course.
I think I've learned most of my accounting through AI.
But it's not a very, very, very strict requirement to look for somebody that has the accounting space knowledge. Also, the roles are going to be very, very different. Getting a developer, we have like very strict requirements for our developers where you've got to be AI first. And I think that's going to be the biggest challenge to get a developer on like that.
The next question is super interesting to me. I'm fascinated with the idea of company culture, and certainly holding on to a company culture as a business scales. Now, naturally, you have, objectives and goals to grow the footprint of your company, but how do you protect your culture as you grow?
That comes into key management hires, and especially the executive hires. Those to me are the most important hires, and they need to embody what Reece and I embody in this business, and how we deal with challenges. So Fintura has 10 commandments, essentially. I don't know if I can say commandments, but we have 10 strap lines that we basically look at as Fintura and how we run Fintura. And, they very much embody like who we are as people and how we see this business. And we would want like our people who come in to embody those as well. And as long as we can make sure that the executives and the management teams are those people, then we don't have to worry about the rest, because we know that will filter down to everywhere else within the business.
Reece, with advisors and investors now on board, how has your role shifted as the Chief Revenue Officer?
Well, my role got super exciting with one of our recent advisors and investors who came on. So a chap called Clive Butkow came onto the board, and I think just leveraging someone like Clive, his experience in scaling startups, exiting businesses himself. He's got an obsession over go-to-market, which I find fascinating. We're like two kids at Christmas, aren't we, when we're talking about new AI softwares that are coming out and how you can automate processes. But look, I think, leveraging all that knowledge on the advisor board is why we brought them in. And the way it's kind of evolved my role is, my role was a lot of things, and I've been able to now focus on, the key metrics, which is actually growing and pushing the needle forward for the business, actually pushing the marketing, pushing the actual user base. It's allowed me to focus, which is good, because we can leverage that knowledge base elsewhere in the different areas of the business.
And how are you able to leverage and balance that outside advice versus the sales reality that you're seeing on a daily basis?
Trust but verify. That's our motto with everything. So I'll always take advice. I'll always, and I will never assume the advice is completely right for us. It's not to say it's the wrong advice, but we always want to make sure that it fits for our exact use case. So we're like sponges with the advice that comes in, but we want to make sure that it actually works for us. So I hope that kind of answers your question. We'll always take the information in, but ultimately it's down to us. We've got the fundamental understanding of the business to actually implement, that advice through our workflow.
Reece, you mentioned the launch of your partnership program is just around the corner. Oftentimes, scaling in fintech is reliant upon partnerships. How's that process gone? You don't have to give us too much insight into what exactly the program looks like, but just give us some high-level topics.
Yeah, of course. So, the way in which it'll work, it'll be a way that people can leverage their network to actually earn, a degree of recurring income by offering Fintura to people that they feel will offer value, it will offer value to. So anyone in the finance space. I mean, we had an amazing conversation just yesterday, didn't we? Where we spoke with someone who supports a large number of SMEs, and then they also partner in accelerator programs for SMEs, supporting them with financial operations. And then we were even talking about how they could implement Fintura into that, to support the small to medium-sized entities in managing their compliance, managing their tax. So really, it's to give them a platform and an opportunity to actually benefit, not just by supporting these businesses with the processes, but also from a revenue standpoint, they can actually earn some additional commercial value from that partnership as well.
And Bernice, if we look inside Fintura again right now, what would you say is firing on all cylinders? What's working really well?
What's working really, really well right now is definitely, if I had to look at it as a whole, definitely what's improved is the workflows running within the system, and definitely like the users. We're seeing so much more activity on the platform, like every single day. And from a workflow standpoint, if we had to look at ourselves having this kind of activity maybe 2 months ago, we would have probably been drowning, completely drowning, like not sleeping at all. But what's working really well is essentially all of the workflows, everything that's been built, all the features, like the continuous development. Every single week, there's more and more and more to this platform, and it's like that is working so well in keeping up with more users, more clients, more services running through the platform. It feels like, sometimes we feel like we're absolutely at the end when it comes to brain power and capacity and everything else. But when you look at like how it's actually such a well-oiled machine, and how everything is working and it's ticking and things are growing, and that's essentially it. Like Fintura as a whole is just running really well.
Yeah, I would just I mean, not necessarily add, but echo the the compliance module. It's just the level of improvement we've built on that particular module in the last 4 to 6 weeks alone has been unbelievable. Like services are running so smoothly through the platform. We've got, again, we do leverage a lot of automation on our side to support in the scale of what's required with the amount of services going through. But we always have that personal touch as well. Our team are unbelievable at actually supporting users through their submissions, especially when it's a new platform. It's a new interface. It's a new place to kind of navigate. We think we've done a good job, and the feedback tells us that the navigation is super easy, but you always need that level of support. And some of the feedback we've had for Michaela, for Quinn, the rest of our team, it's been phenomenal. So I would applaud those guys for really stepping up as the platforms got busier as such.
Reece, on the flip side of my question to Bernice around what's working really well, are there any areas that are a persistent frustration or potential friction points?
As it stands, I mean, we still work 14-hour days, so there must be some areas that we can automate. But yeah, I think for us it's just capacity. We're a very, very lean team. We're just about to close our funding round.
Yeah.
So we are going to start hiring. First in is going to be, building out the rest of our tech team. And yeah, just getting that additional support. So I would say, not necessarily friction, but we do need more support, and that's where our focus is going to go in the next 2 to 3 months. Is going to be building out that core team.
Bernice, if we look at future plans beyond the scaling of your team in the next couple of months, as Reece alluded to, in the next 12 months, what would you say is top of the roadmap?
I don't know if I'm allowed to say, but we have plans outside of South Africa. So over the next 12 months, it's definitely South Africa as a whole is number one for us. So it's about making sure that the foundation of the platform is built, it's running. I would say that we've taken quite a good chunk of the market as far as South Africa is concerned. And thereafter, it is going to be further expansion across Africa. We're a very ambitious founding team, and we've never been the ones who believe in, like, doing something amazing and then kind of isolating it into one place. Like, if it is this amazing and it's helping so many people, then basically why not take it elsewhere? And why not take it to places that are essentially overlooked from a software perspective? So we have our dream list in Africa where we want to go to, and definitely the first one on that list will happen within the 12-month period.
Well, that's super, super exciting. We'll keep that under wraps for now and not dive into it in too much more detail. Reece, again, longer term, what does success look like for you commercially? Is it the scale of firms? Is it annual recurring revenue? Is it market share? What metrics are you monitoring?
You just mentioned them all. So we'd love them all. Look, I think we have extremely ambitious, ARR goals, metrics that we want to hit. Our plan is to go again for a further funding round to support with the expansion. So yeah, we've got huge goals from a revenue standpoint. But look, we want to build something that really supports accounting firms, not just from, okay, I can automate a few processes, but really reframes the mindset around automation and actually building in, AI workflows throughout accounting, which is, to some accountants, and it's very risk averse by nature. You'll probably agree, won't you, Bernice? So it's about reframing the mindset on and making something that's so easily accessible for them to actually use and try, which isn't as intensive as, building out complex AI workflows throughout all of your financial operations for all your clients. Like, it's very, very, we want to make it simple and easy to use so that they can implement it. And it's already implemented in a lot of the workflows throughout the platform anyway. So they're ultimately leveraging AI. I think accountants that don't leverage AI are going to struggle, in my honest opinion. I think, the market will get eaten up by accountants that are willing to adopt AI. They will never replace accountants. That's a bold statement to say on a live live podcast, but in my opinion, they won't, because there's such high level, financial kind of knowledge there that ultimately an AI is not going to understand the context and nuance of, but it will really support accounting firms actually staying competitive and also scaling the practices if they actually adopt those AI workflows. So yeah, just reframing the mindset as well. I'd love to be able to come away from the next 12 months and know that we've made a real impact in kind of the adoption of AI in accounting.
And Bernice, as the leader of Fintura, how are you able to make the tough calls that are required when perhaps you don't have all the data in front of you?
I think, to be very, very honest, when we started Fintura, we had like a couple setbacks, and when I assessed those situations and I looked back on, when we were making the decision to basically start that process, and the process inevitably failed, like, what was my mindset at that time? How was I looking at it? What was I thinking? And every single time, I had some sort of reservation towards making that decision, but went with it anyways. And through that, I've learned a lot to trust my instincts. So if something doesn't, potentially I might not even know what it is. I mean, we recently made a decision to not go ahead with an investor, and if you ask me right now what's the reason, I couldn't tell you. It was that instinct that said, this is not right for us. And that's all that it is. And I think right now that's the best way for both of us actually to make decisions in this business, because we are so early. We don't have a lot of data to support our decisions. In fact, sometimes we have no data at all. And we're firefighting most of the day. So even if, we wanted to sit down and take the time and put together all this data in order to make decisions, that's not a luxury that we have. So instinct plays a very big part in the decisions that we make.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And Reece, shifting to you in terms of your leadership style, but coming at it from a commercial standpoint, how do you keep the sales team aligned with the overall company vision and direction?
It's a good question. I think ultimately it is always a top-down approach. It's like Bernice said before with the key hires within the leadership teams. It's ensuring that they embody the culture and they embody the vision, but also I think personally is ensuring that all of the sales team are exactly aware of where the business is and where we're at that particular time, a complete honest approach, and then where we need to be. I've been in businesses myself where there's a lot of smoke and mirrors. You never really know what's going on with the business, and they can be giving you fabricated information about why, if they're scaling, when they're not scaling, that type of thing. I think certainly my approach would be more like, building camaraderie within that team and actually allowing everyone to make a direct impact, but also see where they've made that impact within the business and just being completely honest in allowing us to scale.
Yeah, and if we look at the journey of Fintura to date, it sounds like there have been many a lesson learned. Bernice, if you look back, what's been the biggest surprise in building Fintura so far?
So it's not a story that a lot of people know, but the current platform that is out there right now, that is attempt number 2 of development, and we had a first round of development, a whole team of developers, and 5 months into the project, very, very close to when we were supposed to be launching, we were given a lot of smoke and mirrors and realized we only had 10 to 15% of an actual product. So that was the biggest surprise. And also one of those decisions I told you about with the instinct, that taught me a lot. So it's been for us, that was the biggest lesson that we learned, and also where we saw what we're about. Because at that time, we were 3 co-founders at that time. One of them couldn't handle it, and we actually lost that co-founder as well. But it's where I think both Reece and I saw, where our strengths are and the fact, what we have to make it work in this business. And it was really about we need to get scrappy. We need to get a platform together. So we're supposed to be launching at this date, and we've literally got nothing to show for it. So we really did. We got scrappy. What were we, like a month and a half late?
Yeah.
Month and a half late, but then we were at the market. So definitely that.
I think we learned a lot about us two as co-founders. Like, to get through that, anyone could have easily threw in the towel there. We had a number of people waiting for a platform, like actively waiting. We'd actually give them a launch date because we thought we were ready. It's hilarious when you think about it. So yeah, we did. We had to just get completely scrappy, and that's where we learned a lot about us, a lot about how hard we know we can work. I thought I was working hard before I started this business, and it's laughable to think how hard I thought I was working back then.
Yeah, I think you even said it the other day. We were on our way somewhere and driving up a road, and he still said, "Oh, I remember the day when I actually had time to do this walk." How did I have time to do this walk before?
Beautiful walk. I just thought I would never have time to do that for the next 4 years.
Yeah, I think you'll learn so much about yourselves if you roll up your sleeves and get your hands dirty, and it certainly sounds like you've done that. Reece, question for you. What has been the most important lesson that you've learned about winning trust in what is a relatively conservative industry?
If I think back to actually speaking to the accountants and some of the the feedback we've had, I think one of the key differences is, well, what comes up quite a lot is a lot to do with data security. I've heard a lot of our users say that, and it's a key focus in allowing accountants to kind of make that executive decision to move platforms, because you're dealing with so much very, very high level financial data for their client base. And it's ensuring that, if they're going to move all of their data to a different platform, like, have we got the right processes in place? Is it secure? Is it robust enough? And that's if I think about when you want to move, I've heard that quite a few times from users. It's a key question that we get quite a lot. So, we got a key focus in ensuring that, from a data security standpoint, the platform is tip top, isn't it? From hosting, securely and locally, it's all done. So yeah, I'd say, building trust, that's one of the key questions I get asked. And that was where we had to kind of, certainly in the early start, when we got scrappy, sometimes you overlook those certain areas, and we had to just double down on that and make sure that it was completely pristine.
Yeah. I have a different take on that, if I may. So as an accountant, looking at like what would create trust, and I definitely think that it's something that you do very well, which is Reece is all about communication. I mean, the man can talk. He can talk anyone into buying anything, and he really does that very, very well with the users. It's constant communication, and it'll be even from messaging to phone calls, just like constant updates. And it's really created such great relationships with the users where, they do trust us. So it's like, even if there is something that maybe goes wrong or doesn't quite work so well, the accountants feel free to actually speak to us and say, this hasn't quite worked out, but I still trust you, and I still trust what you're doing and where you're going to go with this. So, quickly fix this, and then let's move on. And that's what I think Reece has done really well, is from the start has created that open communication with them.
Yeah, I think communication is obviously key, and it sounds like you're really doing a good job. So well done on that. Bernice, where do you see the accounting profession evolving over the next 5 to 10 years? What's in the future?
What I think in the future is definitely, it's what we apply in our business, the 80-20 rule. 80% of what accountants currently do on a daily basis is going to be automated. It's going to be run through AI processes, and that 20% will be essentially the accountants, where it could be oversight over what the agents are doing from a work perspective, and then also being on a more consulting level with their clients. So not essentially sitting behind the keyboard and punching away at things or doing spreadsheets and all of that. That'll all be done. They then take that data and they can properly advise their clients and be strategic with their clients. And I think that's the role that's going to change for accountants, which they are afraid of. But once they get into the swing of it, they're going to pick it up very quickly. And that's essentially what I see it like in the future. And I also think that the accounting role as a whole is going to develop. As accountants' time is freed up and they can focus more on different things, I think that they will start adding to their capabilities and start doing more than what they're currently doing now. Even if it could be they might touch on a little bit of more documentation, more contracting, anything like that is essentially where I see the role going.
Yeah, and Reece, as a follow-up question for you, how are you preparing the revenue side of Fintura to meet that future?
I think for us, it's being at the forefront of that messaging, which will allow us to actually scale. So, we are very education first as a business. We want to make sure that we're educating accountants on AI and accounting. I mean, we've had some unbelievable conversations with potential partnerships that I cannot mention yet, but where, there's even talks of potentially incorporating Fintura as a CPD and, educational kind of supporting platform that, accountants may be going through their articles and then learn how to use Fintura and AI and automation, which is insane. Being at the forefront of almost like a movement in changing education and reframing the mindset of accountants always going to be good for revenue. So, you know, if you're at the forefront of that, that change and that shift, then yeah, I think I can see us scaling immensely based on that.
If our viewers and our listeners want to connect with you, reach out to Fintura, where's the best place for them to do that?
It's always LinkedIn. You'll find both of us on LinkedIn, Fintura, and then just our names on LinkedIn.
Yeah, and our website is fintura.io. There's lots of places on there where they can contact us, they can book a demo, request free access, anything like that. So either one.
Amazing. Well, Bernice, Reece, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. It really has been a fascinating conversation. I felt like we could have probably booked in another hour and gotten even deeper into what's going on within Fintura and what the future plans are. But it sounds like the future looks bright for you. I wish you all the best, and thank you again.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you, Lawrence. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.